let the bass kick.
Big butt, big old butt, boy, big old butt, big old butt, booty, big old butt.
It's all about how serious you go.
What up?
Is it too late to cancel?
Cause you got a big old butt, big old butt, big old.
What up? What up? I'm MC Little Stomachache.
Little stomach.
I'm Lil Heiser,
What up?
Lil Headwind.
What up?
I'm called Fitness Strong. That's what they call me.
AKA Dr. Reverend Preacher's Man, AKA
You can't joke on yourself, okay?
we are having entirely too much fun, kids.
Yes.
Hey, I'm Will. Welcome back to The Last Cash. Who are you?
I'm still Marcus.
Jay.
I'm Dr. Hoy, and I am listening.
And joining us tonight, his first appearance on the Sapphire Lounge. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Not true. How many times have you been on the show now? 6?
How many times have you listened?
A
A lot.
Several, for sure.
I had to borrow his credibility when we first started the show. I was like, I need famous friends to come talk to me for an hour and a half.
Disc golf famous.
Are you famous, dude? I want to hear
so
about
famous, bro. He's
Still famous.
still famous.
I'm out of Facebook friends. I'm just saying I can't.
You
get
can't have any
Oh.
more.
No, I'm gonna have to make an athlete page.
What is
on
the limit?
in
What
the
is
twilight of my?
what
disc
is
golf
that
career.
cap? I've not reached it. When do you,
Now that I only have one good knee.
This is the man, the myth, the JRay, the Jonathan Ray, hardest working man in disc golf. I think anybody that argues with that can meet me in the parking lot.
that's right.
Oh, RIP.
For those of you
Cashman,
that don't know a whole lot about JRay, or this is your first time ever seeing him on the pod, he runs the Dynamic Disc RV, drives it all around the country all year long, and you spend about a month a year at your home.
Sometimes.
How long has that been? How long have you been on the road doing that?
This is 6 years.
Grinding.
Yeah.
What?
Grinding all my life. Grinding all my life.
Every day I'm hustling. So yeah, so John drives the RV all over the country. You do kind of a cloverleaf format from beginning of the season to the end, and you do a combination of running events, vending at other events, and competing in events. And over the last couple of years, because you've gotten old, you've been playing MP40
What? He got old.
and cleaning house. You were always a strong competitor in MPO, and it's not really been any different in MP40. You're racking up a lot of wins, and you still throw far for a fat kid.
That's true. I do. I am fat. Actually.
Didn't you win a record?
Yeah.
Record
For how far you threw?
Yeah. Masters world title.
Hell yeah.
Dang.
Solid.
What was that distance?
That year was five something. And then
500s.
Vegas, I threw 638.
Where?
Damn.
In Vegas.
638.
Eagle was the only one that beat me
That makes
on
sense.
the last throw.
See how I'm going to be a
I'm
man.
sure you didn't lose
What
too much
disc you
sleep
throw?
over
What
that.
disc did you throw on those?
Blister Pros.
I've got one with his stamp on it because they had a sstamp of him. And you've lost weight since. I was looking at that stamp on that disc the other day.
Yeah. I look like Bobby Hill on that stage.
Whoa, buddy! Whoa, was that Kevin's job? Is Kevin to blame for that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was all Kevin.
See, we can say that. We just won't say his last name, and we'll move on. Speaking of moving on, before we do that, I've got a pretty. I'm creating a pretty good track record right now of having some form of retraction that I have to make at the beginning of every episode because I keep getting phone calls after every time I post a video.
That means you're doing something right.
So people are tuning in, is what you're saying?
They're listening.
People are listening.
They are listening.
Hey, yo, for real though, at the bag tag yesterday, I had a guy that I did not recognize. Sorry, guy, if you're watching this, I did not recognize you at the time. But he came up and he said, "Hey, man, the last few podcasts have been really good." And I was like, "Well, thanks, man. I'm glad you like them."
Does that mean the first 100 were really
Totally
bad?
does.
Yeah.
Even if that's not how he meant it, that's
Right.
definitely the truth of the matter. But we have kind of hit our stride. I think it is getting our gear and our process kind of nailed down and being able to get comfortable and relax a little bit and not be having to count down in the back of our mind to the next technical difficulty kind of thing is making things comfortable and maybe a little too comfortable because here, I'll just go ahead and zoom in on me and Marcus. I always keep Marcus next to me because he makes me look more handsome.
Yep.
I'm handsome by association. Yeah, you need your light.
There you go.
Okay, here we go. Now I'm still.
Oh, that's much better.
Yeah.
Where'd I go?
Totally cool.
Back.
But no, on one of the 500 parts of episode 32 that came out last week, I think in part 1 with Neil Finicum, we were talking about, or I was talking about, just kind of addressing, and I probably I knew there was some thought in my mind that said, you probably shouldn't do this since Dr. Hoy isn't here. And I went ahead and did it anyway. And lo and behold, because as per usual, every time I've done that in the last 3 years, it's proven a fatal error. But no, I was addressing the recent separation, sort of the club and the Nashville Disc Golf Store, because the store is no longer doing and payout for the Bag Tag Series. And it was brought to our attention that some of the things that I said may have been misinterpreted or taken the wrong way. And I will definitely admit that there was a part of my whole point that I made that I definitely did not elaborate on adequately. And that was, I think some people may have gotten the impression from what I said that I was saying that Sean Groton and the Nashville Disc Golf Store were money grabbing or something like that, because I was explaining the nature of a for-profit business. But what I should have said at the outset of that conversation, I should have said first, now, Sean Groton and everybody at the Nashville Disc Golf Store have been giving freely of themselves to the Nashville Disc Golf community for many years, but they have a for-profit business and a bottom line to maintain. Because that was all I was trying to say, is you have to understand the motivations of the club and of the store. The store can't do any good if they don't stay open, right? That was basically the point that I was trying to make. So... and I felt the need to make that clarification because there are a lot of people now tuning into the show that haven't been around for a long time and may not be as familiar with Sean and Angela and Justin and everybody at the store as we are. And I wanted to make sure that all of you guys know that was not the intention of what I was saying. And I love the store. And you can go back over the last 3 years of this podcast and listen to every other episode, us trying to funnel people towards Nashville Disc Golf Store and go spend their money there for their disc golf stuff. And we will continue to do that. So,
Damn right we will.
Yep. I mean, 2 of the people on this podcast, Jay and Marcus, are both sponsored by the Nashville Disc Golf Store.
Yeah.
Jazz hands. Breaking news. It's all good. And to sum it up, the way I summed it up on the last episode, everybody just shut the hell up, go play some disc golf. And we can leave that in the dust. We'll save you the whole seat.
And we are on to the next.
But
On to the next. On to the next.
I just wanted to get back to JRay with the where the disc golf. You started out with this kind of like where you started from, and like kind of where you started in Memphis and going around and doing all that. I was just kind of curious where disc golf started for you, like in the beginning.
I got tricked. Thought I was going to play golf.
Like,
One of my buddies.
tell me you brought your clubs.
Oh yeah, I showed up in khaki shorts and collared shirt and golf cleats, all the whole nine. No, I was going to meet an old buddy from Chicago that had moved to Memphis. That I'd gone to church with, Zach Lambert. He was sponsored by Gateway at the time, and had kind of stepped into this leadership role. I found out later in disc golf, but we played conventional golf together growing up, and so. He's like, hey, man, do you want to go play golf with me and a couple of my buddies? I'm like, yeah. He's like, meet us at Johnson Road Park. And I was like, all right. Well, I mean, I've been in Memphis for like 8 minutes. So I have no idea what Johnson Road Park is. It's in Germantown. And so I show up out there, and I'm like, there's no damn golf course out here. What is this? And I get out, and they're all like laughing at me. And I'm like, and of course, I'm like, I'll go play this hippie sport with you freaking weirdos. Yeah. But I'm not going to like it. And they, of course, just pounded me into the ground, and but it was more a thing of I'm a very competitive person, and I was like, I don't even care if I like this. I'm gonna learn how to do it, and I'm gonna beat you at it just because I want to now, and I did. It took me like a year and a half, but yeah, I got good enough to where I could compete with those guys. And then I just fell in love with, the first time you see the full flight of a disc, it's just a different experience from, I mean, I remember like, Shelby Farms was the course in Memphis that I started playing on. It was me and my cousin Stacy and eventually Callie McMorrin's dad, Rich, and we play out there all the time. And like hole 3 on that course is like a 340 foot, 30 foot downhill hole, but kind of wide open. And I remember the first time that like I got up just to flex and do a full flight, and like I was like, oh my god, I parked the basket. I'm like, I'm throw further than anyone in the world, and now I throw a putter on that hole. You know, it's
those
like,
aha moments.
But yeah, it's just it just became a passion for me through being. I didn't start playing until I was in my mid-30s, and I'd missed that competitive nature. I was still playing softball and stuff like that with beer leagues and things like that they were fun but didn't really you're standing around drinking beer in the dugout and not really competing. So this was just a different opportunity, and I really fell in love with it. And then I fell in love with the community and got more involved. And when Zach ended up moving to Mobile, Zach had kind of run everything. He was the president of the Memphis club at the time, and so when he left, he kind of urged me into stepping into that role, and that's where Grassroots was born and had kind of developed in Memphis, and kind of taking that show on the road a little bit now with Didi.
And once again, what year roughly was that?
2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sorry.
I think 2013 something. I got my 10-year PDJ thing.
Yeah.
So something like that.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering if you just got yours, because I just got mine. I noticed our
I
numbers
haven't
are
got
really
it yet.
close.
It's in Florida, but I know my dad said that there's something in the mail that's got a hard metal thing in it. So I was like,
Our numbers are really close. I'm 48, 68, 9. I think you're 47.
47865.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, if I just got mine, I'm pretty sure you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I got mine just to go play Bowling Green.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Is Grassroots, is that the club there in Memphis, or is that like a
Grassroots is
something-
my
that's his
my
business.
entity? Yeah,
Your business,
Yeah.
okay.
It was basically a mobile pro shop. We ran events and provided payout for around Mississippi, Arkansas,
Okay.
Tennessee.
And is that ultimately what led you into your relationship with Dynamic Discs?
No,
Because you were sponsored by them before you formed the business, or after?
it was after. It was like kind of simultaneous. I met Rusco at Bowling Green the first year, and then the next year I went back, and I'd been playing well. I mean, I played advanced for about a year and a half, and then I started playing open. But Rusco and I developed a really good relationship. Jeremy Kindy was the team manager at the time, and he had reached out to me and said, hey, I really think we want to do this. Would you be interested in being sponsored by us? And I was like, yeah. And this was in 2014, because I had taken on Southern Nationals Championships that year, and we hosted that in Memphis, and it was just way out of my capabilities at the time. But we did an incredible job with that tournament. We had our players party and putting championships on Beale Street in downtown Memphis with 8,000 people watching, and it was just a blast. We put up 2 temp courses on city golf courses, and really it was after seeing my first GBO realizing there's a whole new world to what tournaments are supposed to be, and from what I'd experienced in Memphis, it was just everything was a C tier, or it was a Southern Nationals event where it was more about the party and less about the disc golf. And so I really wanted to challenge Memphis to get into more of the professional side of that, and make things look and feel a different way, and kind of give more reverence and respect to what we were doing, as opposed to it just be to feeling like cash grab tournaments, kind of, And so once we did that, I got Didi involved with Southern Nationals. They came down, they brought an RV. Tyler Searle, his brother, Shane Klein, all came down and helped us put that production on, and then it was just kind of formed from there. They offered me a sponsorship, and I went and played USDGC that year, and that was the year Paige Pierce beat me.
She's pretty good.
Yeah, I had the lead for 3 rounds, and then this was in the performance flight, by the way, not not the good players.
Hey, don't sell yourself short, man.
But no, I was like a 9. I didn't have a ton of rounds. I was obviously much better than my rating because I was like a 940 rated player, but I was shooting 10-20 golf on Winthrop Gold. And so with the performance scoring, I was like 30 something under par through 3 rounds.
Sure.
And Paige, she was probably not, I don't know, 60, 56, I don't know, at the time. But she realized because of her rating, like, she's like, I don't know, I can't catch you. And because we played I think every round together. But yeah, it was a blast. She ended up just puttering me to death on the last round, throwing putters off every tee box, and I'm not very good at conservative golf. So I was just doing what I'd been doing the whole time, but I was finding no B's the last day. But yeah, so it all kind of spawned out from there, and then that was I got to go up on stage and get my second place trophy, and it was the first time I got to say, I want to thank Dynamic Discs and for all their support. It was just kind of a really cool opening moment to what became the next, 8 years of my life.
Mm-hmm. How did the transition between, were you sponsored as an athlete or an ambassador at first?
I was on the Fusion team.
Okay.
Yep.
So how did the transition between sponsored athlete and running the RV? How did that? Because and to be clear, because the way I understand it,
this is a point of contention for me, so
Okay.
don't get me in trouble.
well, hey, pineapple.
Hey, you say what you want to say, sir.
So no, I'm curious just to know, like, did you approach Jeremy with the idea like, hey, I'm already running a mobile pro shop, and clarify just because the way I understand it, basically the RV runs as a franchise.
Yes.
Like a mobile franchise, it's your business, you own and operate it.
I'm an independent contractor.
Okay.
Yes.
So was that something, because you were one of the first people on the RVs.
Tyler,
Tyler?
Tyler and Steve-O had been doing it. Tyler was the one that was traveling the way I do now.
Yeah.
But Tyler has kids and a wife and lives in Florida, which is not the most accessible place to the rest of the country. And so he had been doing that, but he was doing, 2 or 3 weeks on, and then he'd come home for 2 weeks, or he'd leave it out there and fly home, and just kind of go back and forth. And so when Tyler's the one who presented the opportunity to me, and then kind of we sold it to Rusco. And as time went on, Tyler was looking to kind of be more regional to the Southeast, and I was amped up and going, I'm not doing anything right now. Like this, I could do that. That'd be fun. I want to go travel. I want to compete and do all these things. And so it gave me an avenue to kind of go test my mettle, because I hadn't really played many big events outside of Bowling Green and GBO. And so that first year I went out and I was like, man, I dig this. Like getting Beaver State and Maple Hill and Green Mountain and all of those so well-known tournaments that are just kind of, we see them on, playing Memorial for the first time. You see these courses on YouTube and you're like, man, I want to go play there. And I got to do that first year, and I was running 150 plus events a year, I think, and so I was, instead of going home, I was taking my off weeks and competing, basically. And so I just got to kind of manufacture my own schedule, and that was kind of how it didn't actually start that way. It turned into independent contractor 2 years later, after we kind of negotiated that a little differently than what we were doing from the beginning, because it was more incentivizing for us to go work more if we were the champions of our own outcome, And so, yeah, we just we crossed that bridge, and I was sponsored as a disc golfer. Initially, I wasn't an ambassador. It was as a player. They had the ambassador team, but they put me on. We had a rating system at the time. Like they used your rating, and then it was how many events you played divided by.
A lot of teams now have a tiered structure like that, and I feel like Dynamic was one of the first to really kind of frame it up that way.
And so my first year on the road is when, I started on, I guess, the Lucid team.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as a 960 whatever rated player, 950 whatever it was. And then after my first year of touring, because I only played 12 events or whatever, but they were all huge events, I got enough points to be qualified for the highest team.
Right.
Because it was this, however their algorithm works, I've got all these points from playing events and things like that, but without the 30 events like everybody else did. And so we we negotiated that down to the Fusion team instead of, the one with all the world champions on it and stuff like that. so I ended up there, and then, over the years, I just keep finding myself getting
older and fatter.
and the worst part is, like, I'm better now than I ever was then. and I win more than I ever did then.
We got more body weight to swing around.
2019, I was the Masters, points title for MB40 in PDGA, and I was like, I had just gotten a world title, and I'm like, you guys just demoted me.
Damn.
I had more
What's up,
A-tier
Rusco?
wins than anybody on our team.
What's up, Rusco? I'm coming to Emporia in a couple
but
weeks.
I get it. I understand my lane and my role at this point, and I'm seen much more as someone that handles the touring and promotion, and I'm a face that is recognized
Everywhere.
Both by just running events, and then people who actually follow Masters Disc Golf would recognize me and things like that. But but yeah, it's creating space for some of these young kids that we have limited resources and limited ability to put people on teams, and so it opens up another space for them to get somebody who's up and coming that wants to go tour, and that's not I'm not a professional disc golfer. That's never been. I love to compete, but that's not what I was doing, And so I get that, even though my pride gets in the way of that sometimes.
Well, I mean, to be completely honest and not blowing hot air up your ass at all, you are widely, one of the most respected people on tour in the industry because of the fact that you have been on the road constantly for almost 10 years. You've been at every major event. You're a fixture on tour. Everybody expects to see you. And beyond that, you have a very wise and analytical approach to playing courses. And I've watched how you practice. I've watched how you play courses. And you and I have, we've been friends for a while now, and we have those conversations away from the event where I get to hear your thoughts and insight on different aspects of courses that we play. And I feel like a lot of the way that I think about disc golf courses and course design now is really very much informed by your manner of thinking, because I've heard the things that you say, and I've always thought that they were always very thoughtful and well articulated before you decided to say anything. Like, you spent some time really analyzing it, and because there's a lot of people. It's very common for people to show up at an event, especially a newer course, and go to Facebook immediately after the event and just tear apart the course and just their initial opinions, how they felt when they played it, the success versus failure ratio, all that stuff. But not very many people take a week or two or three to really think about it and find out why is it that I don't like this hole? Not, I don't like this hole, I've got to tell everybody that'll listen. So, that's something that I've always respected about you, as I've respected about anybody that has come up to us after our events and said, and taken the time to really formulate a good, well thought out criticism and not just light us on fire from the rooftops.
He definitely will tell us if it's a bad hole, because I've heard him say it's like, it's a terrible hole.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate that too. Sometimes I need to know.
And you also have to
Sure.
understand that I come from a different perspective as well, because I've been in your seat.
Right.
I do it all the time. And so I understand how I want to receive information from people.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I do when and it's not often I reach out to TDs or whoever, but even if I do, I always want to give them that grace period, because when I'm done with an event, especially a big one, you're like, dude, I need to decompress. I need some time.
Yeah, I cry in the parking lot.
Yeah, dude. Like, it's an emotional,
It happens.
beating.
No,
to
I
run
sit
these
down in the
events.
parking lot and I bawl like a little girl.
Well, emotional
Been there,
beating.
done that.
Bobby
What's your rating?
and Derek sat there and watched me in 2019.
I almost cried
What's your
yesterday.
rating, JRay, by chance?
9. I don't know. We'll find out tonight at midnight.
Gotcha. Well, have you been 1,000 rated plus?
No, 990 something was the highest I ever was. But that's my thing, is that
Well, even to
I
maintain.
shoot 1030 and I shoot 950
Well, sure.
or worse, and it's just I have this weakness. Is something about, like, it's not quitting. It's that when I get to a place in a round where I'm like, screw it.
Yep.
And it's so dumb. It's so self-deprecating.
Yeah.
Because then I'll go out the next day and shoot a 10-20, where if you just buckle down and go, okay, I'm going to take a 980 round this round.
Yeah.
And just get through it. But I don't. I would just, like, it's like, screw it. I'm going to go for everything. And then it's like, you pull it off, great. You might salvage something, but it just becomes that Simon wow factor thing. You know, it's like, I'd rather make people go, ooh, at this point than like, dwell in the misery of where I'm at in the round. And so it's been a mental block, man. I just, you know, even U.S. Masters 2 years ago was it was a really humbling experience going into it, because I loved Maple Hill and I played it really well. And we played one course there that was called Newton Hill that was not my favorite. But there were factors to why they changed it, and we were playing this course. It was, you know, Steve Dodge family stuff or something money related that with his cousin or something with the pyramids. And so we ended up playing Newton Hill instead of the pyramids. And like first round we played 501 disc golf. It was me and Barry Schultz and I don't remember who else, maybe Johnny. And we all were playing fairly solid, and then Barry just kind of lit it up at the end, and I think we all ended up with, actually no, Barry crapped the bed at the end. Somebody it lit up the end. And we all ended up right at around 1,000, 1,020, something like that. And then the next day at Newton Hill, it's just this course where it's 18 holes around a hill. And so every basket has this rollaway factor.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is the one where Felberg lost his mind. He was just, like, berating people coming off the course. And just really showed his ass. And so, but there was some legitimacy to what he was saying. He just didn't do it in an effective way at all. And like going and berating the guy that volunteers to like take care of this course is not the way you handle that, especially in front of all the New England disc golfers who now think they want to carry you out on a log and just they're done with you.
Yeah.
And so so anyway, I ended up playing terrible, like 940, you know, whatever it was that round. But then the last round at Maple Hill, it was me and Don Smith and a few other guys, and I was sitting in the top 10 still, I think, top 12, and I was like, I can make a move here. And dude, it was just one of those days where you felt it. Like my first 3 holes, I had to scramble twice on and was made a couple of 60-footers to save pars, and then it was just on from there. And I couldn't do anything wrong. I ended up shooting. I had 2 dead center spit outs in the last 4 holes. And on 18, Steve Rico had me by a stroke. And I was like, I got to birdie this. And this is not a good hole for me because I had no forehand at the time. And that island hole, it's just not a good backhand shot. Like, it's just not designed for that. And so I tried off the tee box to get it as far up the hill as I could to try to have an angle to throw a backhand putter into the basket. And I yanked it right into the cedar tree on the right side and fell into it. So I pitch out, then lay up, end up taking a bogey, and it was the only bogey I had in the round. And I shot a 1091 with a bogey and 2 dead center spit outs. And I was like, man, if somebody had just, like, if I just known, I would have laid up and just to get the 1,000 rated or 1,100 rated round, you know?
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, because that's a way cooler club than finishing 4th at U.S. Masters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 2 questions that brings to my mind. You and Stevie have been friends for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And you're very, very close.
He and Don Smith are probably, him, Don Smith, Bob Kolchak, probably my 3 best friends on tour.
Okay. I mean, talk about somebody else that's heavily influential in the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, and has been for decades.
Yep. Should be in the Hall of Fame.
Since he was a junior, he was a standout.
Well, and he's a guy that has literally taken a passion for competing and turned it into his livelihood. I mean, he and Bama put everything they had into legacy, and it was a huge risk for them. And they're still grinding it out, and they're still working concrete, and they're still, you know, I mean, it's just the level of dedication that those 2 brothers have put into the sport is pretty unparalleled.
And Bamba was also for many years. He was
he still is.
He is still. He was, I think, I think Stevie was the one that won everybody's hearts from the beginning, and Bamba was kind of like the one that everybody was watching to see what he would do.
Bamba just didn't get to travel as much,
Right.
too. I mean, Bamba had family, and so Stevie was the one that was like on the West Coast. Bamba and Stevie were right there together, but Stevie was the one that was staying on tour and traveling more, and so his level of competitiveness and ability kind of skyrocketed there, and he just kind of grabbed it by the horns. But yeah, they're both still incredible golfers.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, just a shining example of what anybody should try to do with a good idea.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of being introduced to Stevie by you, 2019 GBO, and he's just such a calming presence. It's like if you're if you're driving down a 2-lane highway and a tornado intersects with where you're going, you hope Steve Rico is the guy that's in the truck with you, because like I remember one time I flew on a plane and we hit a really bad storm in Atlanta, and I was looking because the entire flight we were hitting really bad turbulence, worse than I'd probably ever been through on a flight. And there was I'm 99% sure he was Chinese, but he was Asian young man sitting next to me, and he was watching kung fu movies. And I'm not making that up. He was reinforcing his own stereotype. But he was watching kung fu movies the whole time, just like this, with his hands together, the entire flight. And we're shaking. So I got to the point where I would look over at this kid ever so often just to see what he was doing. And if he wasn't reacting, I was like, okay, we're good. And then, there was one moment where we were on the approach and the plane shook and we were right by the window, and I saw the wing kind of do one of these numbers. And both of us grabbed the armrest like that, and we both made eye contact with each other, and we were like, all right. But yeah, Stevie's one of those people. Like, he's the barometer. You're going to check Stevie to see if he's reacting adversely to a situation before you freak out. Yeah. And a good dude to have around for sure. But my other question that little segue kind of brought to mind is, being that you've been competing in the MP40 division for several years now, I know that because of conversations that you and I have had, that, and just because of sentiments that we both share, you have some pretty specific thoughts on the way that Masters golf is being presented and showcased within the sport. And I share the same sentiments. I'm not meaning to put you on a pedestal.
It's showcased?
Or just presented. It's the way that Masters golf is or is not.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
I picked up what you were laying down there, but it started to go over the head, and then I grabbed it and I brought it back down here.
That's why I love you.
Thanks. And but yeah, so I know we've had conversations about this, and I've always agreed, because in the years that I've been promoting disc golf events and disc golf initiatives, I've found that it's all about how you present it. And when you talk to media providers or you talk to people, it's all, obviously everybody's got to make a little bit of money to keep doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And the first place that anybody goes when the question of providing coverage for Masters comes up is there's no interest. Nobody wants to watch that. And in the back of my mind, I don't buy that. And that's probably why I'm kind of good at what I do, is because I just hate hearing no and being told no. Kind of like Bobby Brody said on the podcast last week, was I just always had a problem with being said no, it's blah, blah, blah. And I kind of feel like, well, maybe nobody's interested because it's always been presented as like an afterthought. Sure. It's always like, oh, this is also going on, in case anybody's interested.
And that's the crazy part. When you say it's been presented as not being wanted to be seen, the guys who everybody loves are who you would be seeing.
Yeah. Here's the caveat to that, in that I compare it to what women's disc golf has been for, let's say, the last 10 years, where you had basically two girls, sometimes three, that could compete, and that or compete at the highest level, and that separated themselves from the group. And in Masters, it had kind of been that way. It was Barry and Schwebby and Johnny and a handful of those guys who can all still compete. I mean, they all still win open tournaments all the time. But now the women's game has started evolving, just like the men's on the pro side. I mean, we had Rick and Paul for the longest time, and now there are 20 guys at least every week that can win. And same with the women's side. You're seeing Lisa Fakis just won $5,000 in Texas, and Haley King, and all these other women that are really stepping up their games, and it's leveling the field and creating more drama and interest in what that is. That's happening with Masters now, and it's happening because it's evolving. Guys are getting older. I mean, KJ Nybo, Steve Brenster, Avery Jenkins, Johnny McRae, Barry Schultz, Steve Rico, Eric McCabe. They're how many world champions and U.S. champions in that group? The problem is we only get a couple of highlighted events a year where all of those people are there, and so, but that is very worthy golf to be covered.
Mm-hmm.
I would pay to see that.
And so that's kind of where we're at with it, is that, and I think my biggest frustration is that we pay the money into the PDGA just like everyone else does, but that money's not getting allocated the same way for our events. And so, and I don't know the ins and outs of the finance, even though you can go look it up, but it's, to me, separating worlds for us was a huge deal. It's not fun. Like, it doesn't have the same ambiance because we don't get the celebrity of having the open men and women there. And so, and I get why they did it. They want to expand the fields and let more players in, but is letting a bunch of 930 rated open players into Worlds really more important than letting
Shouldn't be
just letting 40 or 50 Masters in? And even if we're not on the same courses and not highlighted in that way, like, give us the same respect to be celebrated in a way that we get to have the fanfare and the novelty of what's going on. And so, and that's really all it is that, I mean, we know that the hierarchy of disc golf is pros, AMs, women, then age protected divisions. And it's not hard to see that. But we're just the afterthought because, and my problem is, we're the ones that are putting the most money into it. The 40 guys are the guys that are spending money on hotels. They're taking a week off of work to come be here, and then they're making us practice 3 courses, so they got to take more time off. Then we're playing in the middle of the week instead of on the weekends. And it's just, there's so many things that just keep shifting us further to the back of the bus. And I get the logistics of things. And so it's not always possible. You can't always put everyone on the best courses.
Well, I mean, they say, I heard Dan Crenshaw on the Rogan podcast say that, there are no solutions in government and policy. It's all trade-offs.
Yeah.
And so, but that's always, I think, another part of why our club has been successful in our events is because every time we're about to make a decision, we weigh what is the ripple effect going to be for somebody else that's at this event if we make this decision to make it better for this group of people. Yeah. And that's something that you always have to be cognizant of as a TD. But at the same time, like, Marcus can weigh in on this because he's got a lot of years in the service industry and he knows restaurants and food. I mean, a line cook in a cafeteria can make you a better tasting meal than a chef at a 5-star restaurant. But there's such a thing called plating. You can have the same meal, and if you put it on the plate right, you could charge $30 more for that meal.
Damn right.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't buy it when somebody tells me there's no interest, because I'm saying, well, if you package it like a piece of crap, nobody's going to watch it.
Sure.
If you don't put some ribbons and you don't throw a little bit of glitter on that thing, it's still a piece of crap.
Well, I think you agree, and I was going to get to you because I know you have a solution, or at least a right direction to go in to be able to get that type of coverage and get that type of respect that and rightfully so, you guys deserve it. But I think it's the same thing that's really kind of pushed disc golf before obviously the COVID pandemic, but just pushed disc golf in general is the coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And how good it's gotten and how much more it is. Of course, YouTube's a big part of that, social media, but just the quality of coverage. And and I hate to say this, but the last time I watched a Masters thing, the quality was even terrible.
Oh yeah, it's because it's one guy from a crew that comes out and he's like, "All right, I'll go do it." It's like,
yeah,
we've gotten that. We've had that before.
But it's one of the things we talked with Jeff Spring about this. Stevie and I sat down with him last year at Memorial, and in Japan for the Japan Open, if you are an age-protected person, you're playing the same course on the same days. Everybody plays the same course. And so you can sign up for, if you're 51, you can sign up for 50s, you can sign up for 40s, and you can sign up for open. And you're just basically paying a side pot to play in all three of them, but your score counts for all three divisions.
Yeah.
I don't think that is necessarily the solution, but what we could do is, this is what we proposed to Jeff was, dude, give us a side pot. We'll go play the Pro Tour events. I mean, those of us that can still compete in that, but let us pay an extra $100 for a side pot for 40s, because you're still getting the guys that are willing and capable to do that.
Right.
Are higher rated than half of your field.
Yep.
And so you're actually increasing the competitiveness of your division and just allowing us to have a side pot. And so and he was open to it, but there's so many moving pieces. Those guys heads are spinning right now with all they're doing.
Well, they're doing a fantastic job. That's worth saying.
Was it just about being a part of the same events, or is it about getting the coverage necessary?
And it's not necessarily, for that, it was just giving us an opportunity to still go compete and be a part of the premier events.
Sure.
Where right now, all due respect to the people who've taken on Masters Worlds and U.S. Masters the last couple of years, they weren't up to par. They just weren't, And so, especially, U.S. Masters at Maple Hill. But that was Steve Dodge on the tail end of running MVP Open, then MVP AMs, then U.S. Masters, and then the next weekend he was running Green Mountain Championships. Mm-hmm. No one in their right mind should have approved that. Can you fathom having to do that?
No, I would kill myself first.
Yeah, It's just that's not sleeping for a month.
Because I do MCO and then Ogween
and
back
you still don't
every
sleep,
year,
and you still don't sleep.
And
for a month.
after that combo, and it's not even weekends back to back. It's like 2-3 weeks
in
removed.
between. Yeah.
But even that, it's like as soon as we were done with MCO, I always look at everybody and go, "Oh God,
it's our two biggest events, or
that's the ones we look forward to all year for sure." Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying those aren't great events. We look forward to them all year, but I mean, you talk about the two biggest events of the year running 3 weeks apart, and that right there is enough to make you want to just. I'm going to take 6 months off.
Sure,
it's rough, and props to Steve Dodge for doing what he did, man, because the way that he was positioned when he founded the Pro Tour and the number of years that he put in it and the uphill fight that he had on his hands. I mean, one, obviously the guy's a visionary, and we've had him on the show before. I'm a big fan of Steve. And, just like any tournament director or anybody that's a visionary, there are definitely valid criticisms and concerns that could be raised about the way that he handled certain things. But he was doing things that nobody else was willing to do.
Steve Dodge deserves.
And he built something that now is viable, and people that have the means and resources to really capitalize on the potential of it can take it and run with it. And we're seeing the dividends of that now. I mean, look at how they handled the pandemic. I mean, that was the driving force that brought us back from the shutdown.
Yep.
I mean, that it was the fact that they were willing, much like we had to do, is come up with a comprehensive set of protocols to keep everybody safe during the pandemic. We had the added benefit of having you, Dr. Hoy, on staff to be able to kind of help us mold that in a really appropriate and applicable way. But, I mean, you look at just all the measures that Disc Golf Pro Tour has taken and how much more difficult that scale of it had to have been, because you're dealing with a tour that goes everywhere in the country, and every 100 miles you are crossing into a new municipality that has different regulations, different rules on what you have to do before you can come into their area,
and that are constantly changing during the process of this.
I'm curious as to see with the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the Disc Golf Network that's covering the Pro Tour, are these the same entities, or are these two different businesses? Or
the Disc Golf Network is owned by the Pro Tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that then where I'm coming from by mentioning that is they're smart to capitalize on who is making money right now.
Oh yeah,
in the industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things maybe Steve Dodge didn't see or didn't notice. And I know he tried to bring in the people that were already involved, but starting your own,
I bet he's put a lot of money.
Well, and the
into
beautiful
it.
thing about it,
He's-
it's artful not only the way that the DGPT has partnered with the PDGA, and everybody that criticizes the PDGA on a lot of different things without really looking into the facts should really look at how the PDGA has adopted the Disc Golf Pro Tour's model on a lot of things and been willing to say, you are right on this, we're going to adopt that, and we're going to show uniformity and consistency to our base. And that was tastefully done. But also, you look at what the creation of the Disc Golf Network by the Disc Golf Pro Tour has created now, and we're in a part in our timeline where now you've got, where we used to have one or two really top-notch media companies, now we've got a dozen. And that's great because we've got more events than we've ever had, and they're filling up in minutes, and it's hard for people to find events to play. So what the greatest thing, and I think it's almost an intangible, and people aren't really appreciative or articulating it adequately, is that now we have an entity that can function as a media umbrella. And when you're talking about the biggest events that our sport has to offer, you have this giant media conglomerate fully catering to disc golf, totally dedicated, and they can curate a media selection for the biggest events we have. They can bring in all the best providers, Jomez, Central Coast, all of them, Gatekeeper, GK Pro, and bring them in where they're needed, organize the whole thing. I mean, you saw the way it was handled with the CBS Sports broadcast and then the ESPN2 broadcast. I think Disc Golf Network has really provided a framework for all of the media companies to play well together when everybody comes to the same place.
Sure.
And that's going to give us a big edge on moving forward in keeping up with this growth.
I think as we're talking about sponsorships for getting outside of disc manufacturers as the main sponsor, I mean, if you watch golf, like PGA Tour and then Champions Tour, your commercials are completely different of what but Masters and Age Protected, they have the most disposable income. Their kids are out of college or in college and they have a plan. Right. And then, if you're arguing like, well, juniors, their parents are paying for everything, but that's not the same amount of disposable income that Masters, like you're saying, staying at hotels, eating, they're not like, I'm going to crash on somebody's floor because that's what all the pros do. They're like, no, I want to stay in a hotel. I want to go to the restaurants. I'll, go to the more expensive restaurants.
They're the ones that are contributing significantly to the economic impact of your events.
But I'm wondering if, finding, like, if we could reach out to some sponsors, like, as it gets, like, it doesn't get covered, like, I feel like there's a market that maybe sponsors don't know about. Sure. Because when you're talking to certain sponsors, they're like, all right, what's your demographic? Okay, we're interested in the 30 to 35-year-old or 35 to 40. Like,
let's go hit up BioFreeze.
Yeah, exactly, man. Blue Emu. I mean, I'm just thinking of things that they have different. They're different places in their life, so they could. Yeah. There are possibly some companies.
Who's an e-brace manufacturer?
Yeah, I mean CBD companies. They have millions of dollars to throw around, and they're like,
"Are you suffering from joint inflammation?"
So where's
Justin Martino at the disc golf store was actually talking about some CBD. Somebody came by and brought something.
Yeah, I mean,
in a form of
they have
was like,
millions
really
to throw
enjoying.
around.
Oh,
sure.
No,
I was just gonna say, what is your, when you present that, just in your head, my mind would be like, I would try to come up with a solution. So like, what's their incentive for getting into the disc golf world? And I've asked this question a lot, and I've talked about it a lot. When our profit margins are so low, I mean, the only thing they're really getting is time on either as of right now, YouTube, or the Disc Golf Network if they advertise on there and in between or whatever. What's their incentive? I mean, Bushnell's jumped in, and that's kind of
we have to show somebody a return on investment.
Sure, that's
and so the reality is that there are very few things right now that we can target that make sense.
Sure,
I think it's the small startup companies.
I think FedEx is the exact example, because what's the one thing we all have in common in disc golf? We are buying, selling, trading. The disc golf manufacturers are doing tens of millions of dollars a year in shipping.
And now more than ever.
Let's get an exclusivity deal with FedEx. You match the rates for what we're doing. Give us $2 million a year to put into these events.
Yeah.
And then disc golfers, just like with Adidas shoes, they weren't the best shoes out there. They're good, but disc golfers bought them because they were supporting disc golf.
Yeah.
Or seemingly supporting
and once a
disc
pro
golf.
had some on, And they're like, here's
yeah.
a coupon code. And they're like,
And they were
"I got a
good. You
coupon
had to
code from
replace
Pro."
them once a year.
Yeah.
So you got to
You got free shoes every year.
My first pair lasted me about 6 weeks.
I think if you have, you go for those companies too that are like starting out. Like, you might Coca-Cola presenting something or something like that. But an up and coming CBD oil company or an up and coming.
Well, that was an issue
Word of
with the
mouth out.
PDGA for a long time. Was that was not
Okay.
an allowed sponsor.
Sure.
I think Steve was the first one
yeah.
with the San Francisco Open that had. It was something.
What was in San Francisco?
It was something essential. I can't remember. It was a CBD weed
Yeah.
company. That they just didn't have that name. It wasn't WeSellWeed.com. It was something else.
We talked about this a little bit over the weekend, I think, but the mini doc that was on the Disc Golf Network about Golden Gate Park,
Yeah.
and there was a section of B-roll where it's cutting between two interview segments, and the volume lifts when this B-roll hits, and it's just a camera focused on a dude sitting on his Gorilla Boy bag saying, I got gummies, I got edibles, I got pre-rolls, I got carts, I got da-da-da-da-da. And it's like you hear the volume, and then it's like, obviously it cuts to this B-roll where the camera's far away from the sound source, and so the volume comes up.
Yeah.
And then it just cuts back to another interview segment like nothing ever happened. I'm like, and this is the Disc Golf Network.
It's guerrilla marketing.
I was like,
Trying to get it okay with the people.
Extracts. Wasn't that what it was?
yeah, there you
Absolute
go.
extracts.
Absolute extracts. That was it.
Ask for forgiveness.
We fight for years to get away from it. And then hey, you want to give us
Right.
your money?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Well, and
the-
that's the thing is that
Beer-
those companies have millions.
Oh, yeah.
To
Look at
just
the beer sponsors and
they'll take a donation.
NFL and things like that.
Well, that's the thing. When you compare them to like ratings or viewerships, like you have to go for smaller style companies. And then therein lies the risk. Yeah, they supported you 1 year, and they're like, "Hey, we'll support you. We want to be involved in this. We'll give you, this amount of money for the next 3 years." But if they fail in 2 or 3 years, then, that's kind of the risk you run with like getting, sponsorships.
What if we
and up and
farm
comings.
out the solution? So charge people, all the media companies. It will cost you $1 million to film USDGC, and then all the media companies have to scramble.
And nobody would
get
film
advertising.
USDGC.
Well, I mean, there's a
about to
number
be a
there. I'm not saying
holy war.
1 million. I'm saying there's a number there that
Wait,
they
you
would-
were talking about something?
We're getting very close to a big clash between the media companies and the Pro Tour because of YouTube rights.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Pro Tour wants that revenue, but it's also what keeps these guys afloat. And so I don't know when, but it's going to be soon. I mean, Terry Miller talks about it all the time, but it is going to be something that that they either have to hire them full time or something else. But Jomez isn't going to give up their tens of thousands of dollars a month from YouTube views.
Sure.
And so it's just
because they're like, we're the
Pro
tournament
Tour
you
also
filmed,
goes,
and
you're, you're broadcasting our event. We're putting on the show. Like we want that revenue also.
Or at least a portion.
Yeah. And so it's it's going to be tough to figure out how they navigate that whole situation in the next couple of years.
I mean, there's a lot of things right now that we're playing catch up on,
Sure.
and it's going to be really interesting to
It could
see.
be that ESPN picks up the Pro Tour and then ESPN goes and hires Jomez
Right.
and Central Coast that
Yeah.
way.
Yep.
I know they're talking. I think 3 or 4 ESPN events this year.
Really?
So
I mean, because I think the ESPN needs something different.
yeah.
They've had everything. It's been the same
they
forever.
saw.
And I mean,
they saw what we did on ESPN2 with
Right.
post-edited, coverage.
Yeah. Right. Well, and the
And
people
so
that
I think they'll see that that the live. You put something that's so easily attainable on ESPN on a weekend, in between football and baseball. In the summer it's just baseball, and that doesn't go on in the middle of the day.
Right.
So,
You ever heard of handball? Like, it was in the Olympics. It's like, I don't know if it's
racquetball
3-on-3 or 5-on-5, but it's kind of like a mix of soccer, but with like a tiny ball, and you throw it.
It's
instead of,
almost like
kick it.
wall ball. Did you ever play wall
But
ball?
it's like full
in
court.
high school. Yeah, but you get a full court.
So, like, when you talk about disc golf being on TV and ESPN, that in itself, I think, tumbles into what you're going into with trying to get those outside sponsorships.
Yeah.
Because when you have people who've never seen it, they see it and they're like, "Oh, that looks easy." And the reason why I bring up handball is because the first time I saw it in the Olympics, I was like, "I want to do that," but I looked it up, anywhere close to do so. But with disc golf, we're right there, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that being itself, with the ESPN, that comes your revenue. There comes the airship that's going to pay dividends for the sport, as far as that goes.
If anybody has connections to corporate sponsors, it's ESPN. So
Absolutely.
AKA Disney.
right.
Yep. So we're pushing break time right now, and I just
Biggie.
wanted to tease a couple things that we're going to get to on and after the break. You guys, we had a couple events this weekend. JRay, you ran a C tier called the Battle for Ogwood on Saturday, 2-round C tier. How was that?
It was awesome, man. I felt bad. I got so many phone calls and text messages and people going, I didn't even know this was happening. I didn't get signed up. I'm like, well, nobody did because it filled up in like 15
right.
minutes.
Yeah.
So we didn't even have to promote it. It just happened.
Guerrilla marketing,
Which is,
grassroots.
that is the world we live in right now with disc golf, man. Like
Crazy.
everything fills
That's a
up
good feeling.
quick. There's 100 people on the wait list. And so, it was awesome, man. We had, Philip and Tasha are always just such incredible hosts at Ogwood and always welcome myself and obviously you guys as well with open arms. And so it's always I get to spend 2 weekends out there a year, but it's always special.
For sure. How many players did you have on Saturday?
We capped it at 90 players.
Smart.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, for 2-round C tier, it's good to do that. And we had 220 hits
Yeah.
for Sunday.
Well, 220, but we dropped down to about 212. We had a couple people didn't make it out.
Joseph Stevens.
We
you
were
didn't show
over
up.
200 people for a bag tag,
For a bag tag.
non-sanctioned.
we had
non-sanctioned
signed up
bag tag.
220.
Yep.
Yep.
Shaking my head.
Here's a couple cool things we do. I just posted today. I made a little wedding video for Mr. Marcus. Dad
Yeah.
got married, and
Sucker.
I officiated the wedding, and I filmed it.
I'm married.
I'm a man of many talents, but it's available on the YouTube channel now.
We are
The-
for hire.
and then we are for
Yes.
hire. The Marcus and Maggie wedding special is going viral. Go check it out if you haven't already seen it. Sunday, we played the MCDG Bag Tag Series Event 3 at Ogwood, and our good friend Lyndon Lance, you may know him as father to Thor, Lance, hit his first ace on hole 10 at Ogwood.
golf
So
snaps.
golf snaps for Lyndon. And that is Bandwagon Music and Repair for all your musical instrument needs. Go check them out on the west side.
We also had a second ace, a little less known.
Yes, speaking of aces.
Well, Todd McKee.
Oh,
in the
also
pro
Todd
field
McKee. Yep.
hit hole
Yeah.
11.
Hell 11.
I believe he has 7.
How did that go so
for
unknown,
buckets.
though?
I
That was what I was
we
like.
were only
Mostly,
talking about
I was
Dr.
asleep
Hoyes.
during
Yeah.
his round.
I was like, most aces.
I mean,
get known.
there's aces you hit, and then there's aces that make the rounds.
I
The
guess.
shot heard around the world.
Right.
The
And
shot heard round Og.
we had the feature card to rule all feature cards
That's very
on
true.
Sunday. It was a pod card. It was me, Jay, Marcus, and Dr. Hoy, joined by our guest this week, Mr. Jonathan Ray. And I'm just going to put this right here and go.
Great form.
What hole
Look
is
at
this?
that.
Oh
Is
yeah.
this hole
Where's
5?
it going? What's
I
happening?
can see the basket.
There's a
It
huge
might
basket out
be
there.
the wrong basket, but it sticks.
Stuck.
So is he gonna pay up or what?
Man,
Yeah,
that's-
he
that
still
guy's
has
looking
5, bro.
Still haven't got my $5.
Presidential
I know,
right
right?
there.
So
No, wait. Okay. All right. Let's talk about this $5. Let's talk about what we call this here. Yeah.
Just
But no,
joking.
on the break, you guys, what you
Let
were
me
about to
hold
take.
5.
Yeah.
That was your first, right?
first black
First
ace.
what?
First ace.
Is it a black ace?
No, that's
Okay,
not his
that's not a
first
black
ace.
ace.
It's a black basket.
It's not a black ace.
Yeah, I mean, so-
but it's not a black ace unless it's the wrong hole, right?
Right.
Right.
It's a
That's not
gray
really a
ace.
hole.
And that's why I
Yes.
told you
It's
on
a
the
gray
a gray
ace.
ace? I like
Right.
it.
Pineapple ace.
That's what we say at Seven Oaks because there's two
Pineapple
baskets
ace.
on every
Pineapple
hole.
ace because
Holy crap.
What?
Look at the service at the Sapphire Lounge. Golf snaps for Dave Vaughn, dude. Jump in here and get some credit, dude. You are the man. Nothing but VIP service.
Marcus looked at
Mixtape.
me.
Sapphire
Dave
Lounge.
Vaughn's mixtape coming soon.
How did he know it was break time? That is
Nice.
incredible.
I don't
was
know.
crazy.
It must have been
Love
podcast
this
magic.
place.
Podcast
Pineapple ace
magic.
is one that you hit. You know you're not supposed to hit, but
I can get behind
And he
that.
was wearing
You
a
do it
shirt
anyway.
that had pineapples on it, which
the pineapple
was,
ace.
yeah.
I
But
like
on the
that.
break, you guys will get to see the video because we obviously took video of this.
Sure.
So, yeah, you guys will get to check that out. That was just a little bit of a sneak preview there that
Little
I
taste.
just teased you with.
Hey, we
there.
tied.
yeah, that was the only bad shot that our whole group threw.
The
Yo,
only one, sure.
I-
only one.
I actually beat some people other than Dr. Hoy playing open.
Oh,
At this
damn.
one.
Ouch.
I beat
That hurts.
Justin McCain by a couple strokes. I got Alan Farmer. I got Moppy. I got somebody else.
Me and you tied.
What'd you
Oh,
guys-
yeah, and we
what did you
tied.
guys shoot?
I shot a
57?
57.
We kept
It
it in
was
the
a
50s.
roller
That's
coaster
all
of
that
emotions,
mattered.
man. It was all
Yep,
over the
we all
place.
kept in the 50s.
Corey goes, you shot
No
57.
comment.
And I was like, no way.
It was definitely probably like the most fun I've had playing disc golf in quite
yeah,
a
it was
while.
a good time.
Yeah, it was a really good time. So check it out on the break, you guys. We'll be right back. On the podcast, on the podcast, the last cast.
Did you hear the order, Judge? No. Zach, Marcus, Jay, Will,
Zach, Marcus, Jay.
I'll get the 3.
Good boy. Neighbor.
Pineapple.
All right, Zach, 4, Marcus.
3.
Jay.
Carry the 1. 5. 3.
JRay. Mark. call that a space ace, Dr. Hoy?
Woo!
I didn't have a good following. This thing is
Simultaneous flip hands.
I
It's
can't.
hard enough for him to operate it on one person.
What are you doing? I'm not even touching anything. It's like a fold in half.
You just recorded the grass.
Marcus, you get to use the gimbal from now on.
Oh yeah. Come on.
Ching.
Are we playing elevator or just straight?
I got it.
Those doubles. Didn't realize I was in the box.
I see the sun, man. Four.
It's about the size of it.
Verdict of truth, though.
What? Join me.
You alright, Bella? Is that a football on the T-Box? Is that a football?
Who's good at destroying or they want to throw?
James Conrad over here.
I like it.
Nice.
You know.
I mean, it's.
I'm not
gotta
hungry
do
anymore.
The podcast doesn't work out. We
Yeah.
can always be beatboxers.
For sure.
Yep.
Now we have a YouTube channel. We're
Yo.
already building an
Yo,
audience.
man.
We'll just change it over.
We have all this room
Let me
for
have my
activities.
ninja, man.
Yeah.
That's how if you know teenagers I see as patients don't think I'm cool. Hey, look me up on YouTube, kid. You can learn about disc golf.
True.
This is the worst YouTube channel ever.
Oh man, barbecue was good.
Yeah. Thanks
Thanks
Jay.
to Jay for cooking
man.
the butt.
We survived.
Jay cooks the butts and we
Smoke
eats
them,
the butts.
technically.
Smokes the butts.
Smoked meats, that
Yeah.
sweet baby rays, in the smoked meats.
No Sweet Baby Ray's in my house, but yeah.
What's Sweet Baby Ray's?
I was just quoting that.
It's
Yeah.
wannabe
You don't
barbecue
know what
sauce.
Sweet Baby Ray's is?
Wannabe?
Yeah, I don't
No.
call it barbecue sauce, but
What is it?
I mean,
It's okay.
Barbecue sauce.
I know it's barbecue sauce.
JRay, it's okay. Jay's never seen Martin.
Martin, the show,
I don't
never.
Yeah. Hey, bruh.
Where's Sweet
I've seen
Baby
Life.
Ray's from?
Yeah.
I've seen Life.
Right there.
I know it's a barbecue sauce, but
Every time you're like coming around a little bit on me.
Yeah, I know.
You go and
it happens to
fucking ruin
everybody. Don't get me on movies. It's terrible.
yeah.
It always happens on the
His next
podcast.
birthday.
You-
I saw-
you should have been here
I
the
saw
night we
E.T.
had
as an
Callie and
adult.
Eric
His
on.
next birthday, I'm buying him like a whole scene.
Yeah.
I like how that was the level that
I'll
Marcus.
PayPal you now.
That was the level that Marcus like. See what I'm dealing here with? See what I'm dealing with here?
I saw E.T. as an adult.
Yeah.
So
Like, oh, now I get it, Marcus. Yeah. This guy's crazy.
I'm just saying, Martin's a classic, bro.
Yeah. Martin.
Gina!
I grew up in Arkansas. What can I say?
Oh. That thing.
You guys didn't like funny shit in Arkansas?
No, I mean we just didn't.
It's not allowed to laugh there.
The world didn't let us have
Laughter is not
cable for
happening.
years.
Welcome to the glow round.
Home of Walmart.
I guess
We
Not
will
that got a problem. Arkansas.
We will
or
not
anything.
sell
Right.
Marcus.
Yeah, it's just like Walmart music. It's edited.
Yeah, I remember being like 16 and stealing a grip of CDs from Walmart and then realizing they were all edited and going.
damn it!
I stood in the parking lot for like 10 minutes trying to talk myself out of going back in and returning.
Return to the
Well,
scene
they
of
would have
crime.
taken them back for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Store credit.
Probably would have taken me back too.
Well, that might have happened.
Anyway, disc golf
Yeah,
is a thing that we do.
Yep.
And we did some of that this past weekend. You guys saw on the break. Pretty cool little fun time we had there. JRay, of course, almost beat everybody. Definitely beat us. Marcus almost shot a bogey-free round.
Marcus was right there.
Yeah, he was.
Marcus was right there.
You guys gonna bring it back up? Okay,
He got
let's
worked.
bring
He
it
got
back
worked
up,
on the
okay?
last
Let's
hole.
bring it back up. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and relive.
The last hole.
Should we shame her?
No.
No, oh no, definitely not.
She's
No,
she's going to
but
Worlds.
I like-
If anybody else
that-
is out there, go ahead. Go ahead.
I like that you had that in your the BFR when you said, "Oh, got a BFR going here, guys."
Yeah.
Or so like you said
Yeah.
something like that, and I was like, "Ooh,
Right.
because nobody had a bogey-free round
No.
out there.
Yeah.
Marcus
I mean,
almost
Marcus included.
Yeah. If
I'm
I
not
bird,
saying
if I
that.
birdie, okay, here it is. If I birdie the last two holes, I get the bogey free round and the win by one stroke.
Yep.
Clear out. That's what it is.
He was
All right.
going for it.
Decent putting all day.
I very rarely
choked
see
on hole
Marcus lose his
17.
temper. He came pretty close on hole
Oh,
18.
I choked on 17 on the putt and slipped off the tee pad on 18. This is the worst finish ever for me.
So on 17,
Not ever, but
did
still.
you look at the scores or did you?
I had
just,
no clue.
Oh, did you
I don't
look
like
at them
that.
at 18 or did you didn't look
I didn't
at
know
any
until we
scores
got back
until-
up to the
Oh yeah.
Tournament
I got
Central.
Dang.
Do you remember the last time we played together, Marcus?
Oh, I'm really good at this. Wait a minute.
You are really good at this.
Beep, beep, beep.
It was the same course.
It was the same course?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I definitely don't remember. No.
I can't fathom you did because
Was it my birthday? Was it my birthday?
no, it was. I think it was one of the. It may have been the doubles,
Oh, the voodoo
the
dubs.
voodoo dubs.
Right, right.
But we literally waited for like an extra 15 minutes to tee off as the last group or whatever, and you came in, ran up, and threw your shot on hole 1 closer to hole 2's basket than it was. And you're like,
Hey.
your partner was like, oh,
It's one of two
that's-
things
that's
because
the-
he also will show up at Ogwood like 30 seconds before his tee time.
Oh, yeah.
And run from his car to the tee pad and almost ace the barn.
Yeah.
And he
Very true.
He did that once just a few months ago, and then he came off the tee pad and came right, stood next to me, and he goes, "I'm not gonna lie, if I had aced that, I would have just turned around and walked back to the car."
See you guys.
out.
I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I came for.
But yeah, I had a great time at the back tag. JRay definitely pushed me on every hole. I think it was on hole 3. I realized like, man, I might have to play like for real because his putt was like solid all day. It's like
You hit a
Your
crazy
shot on 3 was pretty sweet.
par putt on hole 3. Like,
oh
that-
yeah,
that was pretty
I was
sweet.
like, okay,
Alright,
this
JRay.
guy's on. If he's hitting
Yeah, I
that,
know, right?
thing was long.
And we
yeah.
were talking like, how perfect was my drive on hole 3?
Yeah. That
The
was-
turnover Anheuser,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
flexing right toward
Yep.
the basket.
Oh, yeah.
There's this like hazard right in the middle of the fairway, right? Like
Yeah.
you're within 30, but there's a hazard there, and I hate hazards like
Yeah.
that because you're still putting from the same position.
This
It's
is
not like you're
exactly
taking
what
it
we told
behind.
Philip.
It's not like you're taking it right behind where you went in the hazard itself.
Right.
And then, I mean, I made the putt right there, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that was
That was a tough hole.
it was impressive knowing how pissed you were
Yeah.
about the result of the shot that you still didn't jam the putt. So I was
Yeah,
like,
because
all right, here
JRay
we
was
go.
like,
Get a
nice
3.
par.
Right.
Something like he
I know, right?
said,
I called him. I thought
yeah,
pointed you,
yeah.
like, I
I
was
was
like,
like,
no way. He didn't say that, really.
Yeah, he got him. Got
Because
him.
that could have been great.
It would have been.
It would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Circle's edge putt for 2.
Just
and,
can't throw a
You know.
backhand Anheuser turnover. Almost spike with a stable boss any better than that. And,
No.
Yeah.
Very true.
Okay, I've licked my
remember-
wounds. I feel better now. I'm glad we talked
Speaking of
this out.
wound,
Good talk, guys. Good talk. Good
Hey,
talk.
thanks for beating me by 1 stroke.
Jay-
Appreciate
No
that.
problem.
Logan
all because
got
of that par.
JRay by 1.
Yeah.
And
the
we get
putt-
finished on 18. I'm looking at Logan over in the car, and I'm just like, I know why he's right there. He's waiting to see if one of us was going to
Yeah.
either push it to
Yeah.
a playoff or that person was going to win. And I was like, man, all I had to do was like par, playoff.
Both of us.
Yeah.
finished
What-
coming down the stretch, we both just shit the bed.
What putt did you miss? Was it
17.
15 or 16 that you missed? And you're like, there's the win.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you literally called it. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, no, that's not the win. He's already got it.
But you know,
Well,
when you're
in
playing,
fairness-
Hey, you
In
know
fairness,
what part of the
I
round I
thought
said there's the win for
when I
me?
looked it up,
Right before we teed off.
it hadn't populated that Logan was done, and so he was still like 7 under with like 4 holes to play, I think, or whatever it was, and he finished 7 under. And so I was like, I thought I had to at least get 8, but I knew just getting through 15, like making a par there, because nobody's really tuning that.
we
hole.
put up our scores.
But
Not right
yeah.
now. Not right now.
16,
just-
17, and 18
after,
are all
after edit.
should be birdies, you know.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I
15
think
is
you had
definitely
birdie maybe like 4 in a row, and I was just like staying there, just making my threes where I had to and getting a couple birdies. And I knew on like I think it was hole 16 when me and Jay were like basically right beside each other, and he made this great putt right in front of me. I'm like, man, I got to make this putt. Hey, dab.
Oh, yeah, I'll take it.
Don't get big putt by
There wasn't,
Scan out.
there wasn't
really
many
good putt.
highlights of that round for myself. So.
I got
Take
a
it-
really
take it where I can
nice.
get it.
I got a really nice 2 on hole 2. That was
And the hole right before
better
that,
shots. Of
I had
the
a
day.
crazy save because
Pick up
like we
too.
were talking about that shot. What's the one where it was like kind of long? 15. And
Yeah.
it was like if you throw the perfect flick shot, turn over, glide, get stable, then maybe you'll park that hole.
Yeah.
But there's actually no way to park it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's death over there on that side if you're not
Right.
way right and up the hill because you're just so blocked out by the wall of trees.
But I enjoyed myself. It was a great round. I really enjoyed my card.
Yeah, that was fun.
And
Let's talk
Well,
about
in
what
16,
was
you're
it?
talking about
Finally getting
16. 16 shouldn't have been birdied the way it was playing this time. 16 is what was hooked up to the right.
No,
No.
16
Tag right
was.
here.
Oh, is that
15?
15? Oh,
This
okay.
tag could have been a 1 tag.
No.
Yeah.
Was
It
the
could
one
have
was
been
the
a
one
one.
play?
The one was there in play.
Ah,
Yeah, Logan brought it.
nice.
And he left with it
Yep.
Yeah.
because
Sounds familiar.
I
He defensed
decided
it.
to be normal and not be
Well,
great.
yeah. JRay, that one putt, Miller, that one putt.
Yeah, he was only 1 putt away.
I don't know, whatever one you said when you missed it, it hit weak side and bounced out, and you were like, that's the
Well,
one that.
I also got a little bit lucky too because there was a certain hole where I threw to where the basket normally
Oh,
is,
yeah, that's true, too, yeah.
and I was not paying
Quite
attention to
possibly
it. It
the
was
easiest
different.
hole on
yeah.
the course.
Yeah.
And I think I took a. I don't.
I
what was
know
thinking?
this.
I
I
took
was
a
the only
justice.
birdie on the hole, and you guys
Yeah.
all knew what basket you were throwing
Yeah.
to.
You know,
Well, and we
you
were
know
probably
how
all
you
inside
feel
the circle, too.
sometimes? And I think
not-
I heard you say
It's
something
funny
about
because
this.
it's true.
I think I heard you say something about this. Sometimes you feel like, man, just let's just have some fun. Although you're playing for the win, you're playing for like actually
Yeah.
the game. So
Yeah.
I took a justice right there, thinking, oh, maybe I'll just skip it in. And what
Yeah.
happened? It skipped
Yep.
and rode the opposite direction.
Yeah.
35 feet, and I'm like, oh, that was so dumb. You literally could have took
Got him.
The easiest
70
two on the course.
70% of disc in your bag would have worked, and you picked
Yeah.
with the one
Yeah.
that was like, hey, you know what's going to happen if I miss, right? I'm gone.
Marcus, can we talk about my favorite shot of yours of the day? Your second shot on hole 1.
Oh,
How far did that shot
gosh,
go?
Yes,
That was beautiful.
so
It was wonderful.
That was clean, dude.
I've never
I mean,
seen
dude,
somebody do
clean.
something like
You
that
know-
and still make par.
You know exactly
It was
how
so
You
focused.
guys didn't even get the best perspective of it because me and
Yeah,
Doc
yeah.
were over behind him.
Yeah.
And I see him lining this thing up, and he's just going,
Yeah.
going, and he's got I don't know how big the gap was.
It had to be
couldn't have
3
been that
inches,
big.
bro.
Yeah.
Like 4
And-
inches.
Yeah.
And he literally just like dead centers the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
board,
The board.
Exactly,
in front of
yeah.
him, and then reaches through and saves it for a 3. I'm like,
Yeah.
you did not deserve a par out of that. I'm
no,
sorry.
That was hilarious.
But I mean, the thing was, I thought I was close enough to the barn to do my par shot from there, and I was like,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
man, I'm like 2 feet off.
Yep.
How am I gonna do this? I'm like, I took the most serious approach that I
Yeah.
could possibly about that. All right, just get it up and down, vertical.
Yeah, your face was
Follow
so
your hand.
serious on it, and it went like 1 foot.
Yeah.
And then bounced right back to you.
The
I've done
seriousness
that
was just wiped away.
on that hole
Yeah.
before where I was short and early.
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, but I was far enough left where it was like, there's no like throwing a cut roller around the corner and trying to. I took a driver and threw it as hard as I could at the ground, and it literally took off like the bottom of a board and slid through. And saved the par.
Yep, you got to play the course as it lies.
Yeah, risk
But there's
reward.
Like,
little
like,
tricks.
if I knock this whole barn down, Philip's gonna be pissed.
No,
Yeah.
check this out. One day I was out there with Joseph and Mickey and Krista, and I forget who else was with us. It might have been Mose, but whatever happened, Joseph ended up throwing, and he only sidearms.
Yeah.
So how this happened, I have no empirical idea. But he throws from the tee pad on 1, and his disc ends up stuck on the far side of the roof of the barn. Like on the tin. So we go down there, and we're all like, well, you're boned. And Mickey's like, no, I got it. And he, that little half a staircase in the middle of the barn? So he starts there. And Mickey goes climbing up into the rafters of the barn, like swinging across them like a little monkey. And he like gets over, like winds his way through the rafters up near that spot. Like we had people spotting from outside the barn. And he gets up and he just starts swinging his leg and kicking the roof. And it worked. And the disc came down and Joseph kept throwing it, even though it doesn't apparently do what he thinks it does. So,
No, that was surprising he got up in those
shout out to
rafters.
Joseph Stevens. We
I'm
love you.
surprised the barn didn't
Yeah, it
come
didn't
down.
fall down. Like
Yeah.
somebody walking up.
Surprised
I
Mickey
did
didn't
not.
fall down.
Yeah.
I stood
Sure,
outside
sure.
the door and watched
Yeah.
all that go down. By the way, yeah, for sure.
Safely. Nice.
You weren't going to try to catch him? Just to
No.
be safe?
That's a guy taking it into his own hands.
Yeah.
Love you, Mick, but no.
Yeah.
It's we're on a countdown with that barn. I feel like.
What's the best way to get? I hear people carry rocks and slingshots. Like if you get your disc stuck up in a tree, what's your? Some people carry hockey pucks, baseball. Like
The water bottles
What
that they
are-
sell at Shell stations that are shaped like I don't know. They kind of feel like
water bottles.
yeah, but they're like
That are
real
just
wide.
regular
They're
water?
like a grenade. They're like a giant grenade, and so those things are really they fly well.
Okay.
They're very precise. Like you can really kind of get the
Like
arm
the
motion
Fiji
behind
kind,
them.
like the square kind?
No, it's the Shell brand, like the twice daily
okay. Oh,
waters.
okay.
They're like real wide bottles, and then
Oh.
they taper off at the top real quick to the lid. But it's
This
like
conversation took a strange turn.
Yeah.
it's
Well,
a
I
good
mean,
thing
I-
to
I,
throw
uh,
in a tree to get your disc down.
I was just thinking of
Maybe
Cedar
just don't
Hill.
throw in a
There's
tree.
there's the long,
don't
like
play Cedar Hill.
50-foot pole that's flexible. Trying to get up into a tree, knock a disc down, but there's a lot of that are like 80 feet up that you
Right.
just can't get to.
Well, who's carrying a 50-foot pole around with them?
There's one at Cedar Hill. on
Oh,
hole-
okay.
Hole 6.
Somebody just like a course.
Well, there's
I thought you meant
lot
like
of
somebody
different
had
types
it in
of
their
poles,
bag,
Cedar
and I'm
Hill.
like,
How
what?
long are those retrievers we got now?
Pineapple.
They're 18,
18.
16,
Well, it's just a
18.
50-footer, no big deal.
just link up, super glue a couple of those together.
Dude, I saw at Texas State's one of the courses we played. It was at a church property. Like, just clearly, this church was doing very well, and the guy that designed it put a ton of work in and just carved this thing on nothing. But there's this creek that runs through the whole thing, and so it's like 8-foot fairways. It was like definitely not my kind of golf, but there's OB everywhere. Like baskets are 8 feet from the OB line, and so if you try to run this 270-foot shot and miss, you're out of bounds, not putting for 3. But the creek was only like maybe 8 inches, 10 inches deep in most places. But on every hole that had the creek running through it, he had these probably 15-foot poles with suction cups on the end of them. So because it was like a 6-foot drop down into the creek.
Yeah.
And so you didn't have to go down there. You would just stick it and pull it back out. And I was like, this is so simple but brilliant at the same time. And like, I love this guy, even though I'm not a big fan of your course.
She got a plunger on the end of that stick.
Sorry, not sorry.
Nice.
We have a segment that Marcus likes to do.
Is it time for the tip of the day?
Could be.
Just the tip. Just the tip.
Yep.
All right. So, do you have something you'd like to give out to a new disc golfer? Some kind of tip. It doesn't have to be form related. It can be like stretching before the round. It can be showing up early. Anything you think people need to know from you, JRay?
I think obviously distance questions are what I get asked most of the time. But if you're new, use slow discs. Until you can throw a putter in a mid-range straight 200 feet, you don't need anything faster than that. And even then, go to a 7-speed, go to a 9-speed. But until you can comfortably throw 350, you don't need anything more than a 9-speed. It's just not because it's giving you bad fundamentals. Like these high-speed under-stable discs that everybody's making. I sell a lot of them, but I don't like it because it's typically designed for people that don't have the arm speed to throw a 13-speed driver and gives them the ability to manipulate it where they think they can. But it's creating bad form by doing that. And so, like, use all of the avenues we have of videos and pros that are putting out clinics and things like that are readily available to you and watch their form. I mean, I use Drew Gibson as an example all the time. Drew and Paul are two of the most... they use the load better than anybody on tour. I mean, Drew, and they're not tall. They're not built like these new prototypical disc golfers. They're not Simons. They're not 6'5". They don't have 7-foot wingspans. They're stout, smaller athletes that understand how to use their core and their hips. And that is the most important thing. Everybody thinks distance is about throwing hard, which is why they try to rake over the top of everything. But in reality, it's slowing down. Bend your knees, use your lower body, and put yourself in a position to where you can fire your hips through, because that's what's creating power for you. Your body will follow through, but it's syncing up. And the coined moniker, phrase, whatever that I've used is smooth as fast and fast as far. If you dial it back,
Slow as smooth, smooth as far.
smooth
fast
as
as-
fast, yeah.
fast
smooth
as
as
slow?
fast as far.
Fast
Like being
as-
smooth. Just be
Yeah.
smooth in your transition. And then it develops into, like, look at Drew's form. I mean, he doesn't run up. He doesn't have a 15-foot run up like, James. He is a 2-step drop and just is in solid position, just like Paul. But you see his hips explode through the shot, and that's where that power comes from. You hear it. You hear that the disc sounds differently coming out of his hand than it does. I mean, it's like a rocket. But it's just, he has one of the cleanest releases and just truly compact, no-nonsense throws out there. And he's, one of the furthest throwers in the world. But that's one of the things that I tried to pattern my game after. I felt like playing soccer and playing golf is what truly helped me learn to use my hips early. Like when you're striking a soccer ball or you're hitting a golf ball, the idea is we're loading our hips. The difference is in golf, we have a square stance. Your feet are together most of the time, or at least parallel. In disc golf, you want to stagger that plant foot once you need it to be out in front of you, because that already loads your hips when you plant. So your hips, instead of planting parallel, where your hips can't move, plant out in front of you where you've already set them up to be in that position to turn. But that's really it, is really focusing on slowing down and throwing straight shots. Like, learn how to throw a putter and a mid-range straight, because those two discs are going to give you the most immediate feedback. Because if you make a mistake with them, you know it. With a driver, you make a mistake and you know it's just going to go left. And so, or it's going to go hard right. But with a putter, you see the angles, and put yourself on video. Watch yourself, because, man, the things we think we're doing most of the time are not what we're actually doing.
Some of the best advice I ever got on a disc golf course, a couple old timers were at Cedar Hill one day. I was out there for a solo round, and I ended up tagging along with them. And the guy was playing with just his putters, and I was like, "You just only throw putters?" And he said, "No." He's like, "No, I got everything." He's like, "I'm just playing only with putters right now."
Yep.
And he was just telling me, he's like, if you ever feel like you're just off, like your line, your timing, your mechanics are just kind of off and you can't really put your finger on it, just play a round or two with your putters until you tune it in, because they're the most controllable disc. Because they're the slowest, they will do what you tell them to do, and you will figure out where you're off more quickly playing with a slower disc. It's good stuff.
And if you throw high speed under stable, if it's windy,
Good luck.
you can't throw any
Yeah.
disc in your bag. Any drivers, you're like, oh.
Here's a good tip. And when you're throwing into a headwind, Doc, because you're probably the lower skill set in
Yeah,
the
I
room?
I would say I'm
Me and him.
870 rated.
870?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your philosophy throwing into a headwind? How do you do anything differently?
I
other
usually
than using something
throw-
more overstable.
I usually throw. I go with fairway driver that's a little bit more stable than a regular driver.
Right.
But I usually try to throw low shots.
Yeah. So
But
this
sometimes
is
I don't have
something
any
that,
philosophy, and I just throw really hard with the
Cameron
stable disc
yeah.
and hit the basket.
Right.
That's what I did yesterday. Okay,
The really
yesterday-
big
This is a
basket.
good example. Yesterday at the Satellite Basket Ace, I had a
Right to
glow.
left.
Was it a right to left?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
it was right to left.
Well, I had a glow rock 3, like my more stable mid range, and I was like, I'm just gonna throw this hard and down into the ground, and I slightly nosed up, and it just
Yep.
glide.
And I think that is something that most people do out of natural response to a headwind is they want to grip it tighter and throw it harder.
Yeah,
And that is the antithesis of what you should do. You need to take
Yeah.
the same disc, loosen your grip up, and throw it smooth, because when you think about the headwind,
Yep.
spin is what makes the disc fly, right?
Okay.
So in a headwind, the disc is actually increasing revolutions. It's spinning faster by the headwind. So it's making it react even more so than it would normally.
okay,
So by loosening up and throwing it smooth, you're actually decreasing the spin rate, which then the headwind is actually going to make it fly normal. You're not going to get the
Oh,
same
yeah.
distance out of it,
right,
but it will react the same way. But when
Yeah.
we try to overpower it, that's when everything flips over and cut rolls
yeah,
into the ground.
that's yeah,
And so the reality is like Cam Colglazier told me that, 4 or 5 years ago, and it was something that truly changed, because I was doing the same thing. I was grabbing the most overstable thing I could
Yeah.
and ripping it hard, and like that's
right,
literally the worst thing to do. Like, you got to keep the nose down still, but
Yeah.
loosen up and be smooth with it.
right. That's
You
yeah. 'Cause I
mentioned-
usually just try to oh yeah, I'm mad. I'm gonna throw in this headwind and just like yeah.
Well, you mentioned your footwork and the stagger step on your walks or when you plant. That's something that I thought was huge when I was first kind of introduced to that and learned that, because you don't see, no matter how many YouTube videos you watch, no matter which angle, you never see, even if you're from the back, it almost looks like they're standing side by side
Right.
when they plant, as where it is kind of a stagger, and I forget where I learned it. Maybe just a tutorial where somebody had mentioned it, but it's nice that you mentioned that. But you also said put yourself on video, so the video is
when you
perfect.
get those rear angles of people throwing from behind the tee pad, you can see it a little bit more. But even Schustrick's got a great slow-mo video that I think he did at Cedar Hill that really shows that, and it shows how his hips are firing first, and then his elbow and his arm come through in unison with it. But for me, that was always my, like, I always try to develop a trigger. Like when I'm setting up to throw a shot, it's like when my plant foot hits and I actively try to fire my hip through, that's when I use my elbow as my aiming mechanism. I want my elbow to come through on my line, because I know if I'm trying to control my hand, it's at the tail end of the shot. It's following through. It's that's the last thing you can control. And so use the thing that's closest to your target line as your device to stay on plane and things like that. And so, but yeah, just kind of having that, giving yourself a trigger or a timing mechanism to know, go. Like as you're calmly coming up, and like running up fast does nothing. It's nothing. It's just getting yourself in the proper position to fire and explode through the shot, and then finding a way to make those things sync up with your, you got your hips, your knees, and your shoulders. Those are the three things that you have to keep in sync and in parallel throughout the whole shot. That's why we do the side step. And it's like the old basketball drills where you stand and running sideways back and forth, but you're keeping everything square to your body.
not crossing your feet.
Right.
So what do you do with in the wind, like stability of your disc wise or disc selection?
It
Like I know you said about the grip, but how do you
I mean, in
adjust?
fairness, I carry like 2 understable discs in my bag, so everything's pretty
I don't know.
overstable. But yeah, it's I use like hole 3. Your ace
Yeah.
hole is a good example. Like Marcus and I had talked about it before. I was like,
Yeah, we did.
With this
We're thinking about the
crosswind,
flick shot.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
talking about throwing a forehand with something overstable, just to try to beat that wind where it's because it's gonna be pushing it down, and if you miss your angle coming down that hill like you did, where you give the bottom away, it's
Yeah.
gonna lift it and send it
Yep.
70 feet left of the basket,
Yep.
like yours did. And so he threw first, and I had a justice out, and I had a driver out to throw a forehand. And my forehand is not my strongest part of my game by any means, but once Marcus threw, and he executed the shot almost perfectly.
Yep.
He just got a little wide and a little bit too nosed over.
Still got the
Yeah.
2.
But he got the 2. So I took that justice, and I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. I basically threw a flex shot down the hill and tried to keep it as low to the ground as possible,
Yeah.
so that it's sliding under that wind, and that disc is so overstable. I know it's gonna come out
Yeah.
and straighten up,
But by that time,
but by that time it's in the ground under the basket, and so you
This is
just
about a
you
foot
kinda
of
have
basket.
that built-in backstop there if you
Yeah.
can keep it low.
glad I could help.
Yep, thank you. Got him by one.
Win W number 1. Yeah, dude, you definitely pushed me, man. That was a great run.
Well, it was a
round.
great follow-up to your par on the previous hole.
It was thematics.
I didn't learn I
Thematics.
didn't learn anything from all 4 shots. That was the last drive on that.
I did birdie the previous hole.
Yeah. I was like, nah, I'm gonna like not take anything into account what they did and just do my own thing.
Oh yeah,
man.
sorry, I kept thinking that was hole 4.
Oh,
That was
oh,
actually hole
oh, I know
5.
exactly what you're saying. Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
was hole
I
5.
got
So
you.
you did
The deuce
back-to-back birdies. Yeah.
Yeah.
The deuce par.
Yeah, nice.
What's your favorite place in the world?
Milo McIver State Park.
Okay.
Favorite course or favorite place?
It's still my favorite place and course.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's just,
So you must be all sorts of butthurt right
oh,
now.
dude, I don't even want to talk about it.
I
It's,
knew you would be.
This is 2 years of not getting to play that event, and it's similar to this environment where I have so many great relationships. Like the 2 Jeffs that run the event are just 2 amazing friends of mine, and everybody from Maury the Brit, who is just a go-to. He's this dude from Britain, and his name's Maury, but that's what everybody calls him.
Sounds
Maury
like a
the Brit.
character in a
And
Guy Ritchie
but he's-
movie.
He like every year he's just the guy that runs up and hugs me and hands me like patches and things from Beaver State Flings, and I'm like, it's a different environment for disc golf that we don't have anymore, because it's migrated over the years and changed a little bit, but it's a state park, and so everybody with RVs is every year I'm parked next to Paul or Paige or whoever, the Oakleys, but it's just this fun. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and everyone's there. And so at night, you're just walking around campsite to campsite and having a good time. And you have a beer with this group, and you go over here and you talk to these guys for a little while. And it's just, we don't get to do that very much anymore, and especially the last 2 years with the pandemic, and so, or a year and a half. But it's just it's just my favorite golf courses that we play all year. We play some awesome places, but I'd put Milo right up there with any of them.
It's going to be really interesting to see just how drastically it's changed.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Oh, they got nailed by those storms.
Oh,
man.
okay. I didn't hear that.
And
It was
evidently
canceled, the Beaver
the
State
park
Fling
wasn't even
canceled.
going to let them in there to clean it, because it's supposed to be the first week of June.
Yeah.
And the park wasn't even going to let them in until the second week of May to attempt to clean it up. And they're like, that's just, we can't guarantee what's even going on. They'd sent pictures and stuff, and it looked like it was going to be weeks of work. And so 2 years in a row, man. And I know the Pro Tour right now is scrambling with the PGA to try to fill in another AT in Oregon this year. But I don't know if they've made any progress on that, because they've got a whole lot of hurdles to jump through.
Yeah, somebody had asked me if I thought that it was going to affect MCO in any way, and I was like, no. I mean, the only thing that I could see them possibly doing is maybe replacing it with another event as another national tour. But how are you going to schedule it? Because MCO is positioned to lead everybody to USDGC.
Right.
So it would, I said the worst case scenario would be, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, would be like we're no longer the finale. They somehow squeeze it in between us and Rock Hill, but that's not going to happen.
There's an opportunity for
no,
that,
I
is
don't
there?
think there is.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, it's
just
across
a
the country.
2
But also
weeks
the
or 3
planning
weeks
of
or
an
something.
NT.
Yeah.
I mean, how could
Exactly.
you-
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, then you have to think about too, geographically.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Because you've already hit so much of the year, and then you go back to like one in 2019, how hard it was to get the tour scheduled to begin with, because the Pro Tour is growing, and then the PDGA is trying to figure out how they both fit together, and then everything got pushed, and then Pro Tour came back, National Tour didn't. Now we're all back to playing nice together again. It's just all it's growing pains, but.
The only option I feel like they if they try
Well,
to
just
supplement
5
another
events.
one is they'll end up doing Hall of Fame or something, and
Yeah, like
you know,
they like,
After
Yeah.
USDGC or something.
or before
or
us.
before even.
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, and that would make sense. I mean, because it's a established event, and it wouldn't take much for them to
And
start
it's
the
going to
engine
be,
again.
that's where there's a new major, right? Mm-hmm. 2022.
2022. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
What champion? Or
It's I don't know.
That was one thing I was really surprised about
what
when
was
we,
that? What was that, buddy?
when we got our bid, when they accepted our bid for the NT, and talking to Sean and saying it was likely going to be the last stop. That was my first thing. Was like, no Hall of Fame. It's kind of surprising.
It's Hall of Fame's weird. Like it's not a loved event. Holly Finley loves it, but it's super wooded, and so I don't think it's super loved by the vast majority. And they've done so much work on those courses over the years. Like Jackson's an amazing course, but they didn't have kind of that second course that was really, I think, that caliber, or at least for that level of play.
right.
And so, and let's be honest, man, there's not a large percentage of guys outside of Michael Johansson and a few others that love playing super technical wooded golf. Matt Bell, guys like that. That really thrive in those positions, and putting is paramount, But even Texas State's this year was kind of looped into that, and we saw a really weird leaderboard, or some guys, some names on there that
No.
we just don't normally see that high up that late.
What are your saying that? What are your thoughts with Cedar Hill being in the mix for the finale? Because I feel like we're doing a nice job of mixing both.
Yeah,
Hey, I'll tube it if I want to.
Honestly, like I
wait, what?
I will grip it if I want
What's
to.
going on here?
He's getting on me for my mic grip. I gotta have my hand on something cylindrical.
commercial break.
Yeah,
Pineapple.
but what your kind of your thoughts and takes, because I've not been to was it Tyler, Texas? They had
Yeah,
it?
Tyler.
I've actually been there, but not to
Yeah.
play disc golf. I don't never been to those courses, so I'm kind of
That
curious
course
to
makes
hear.
Cedar Hill look wide open.
Oh, okay, all right.
And that's the thing. Like Cedar Hill, you guys have some niche holes out there that are super tight, and you have to navigate those. But for the most part, that's a really fair course.
Okay.
Yep.
So I don't think there's any issue with that at all.
Okay. No, I just the woods aspect.
Yeah,
I just didn't realize it was
that's-
that different.
But I mean, and that's why I have such an affinity for Milo, is because it's wooded golf, like supremely wooded golf.
But it's fair.
But it's fair, and it is technical distance, because you got some tight holes where you got to hit your lines, but you got some, you got an 1,100 foot par 5 where if you don't throw it in a 30-foot circle, 460 feet off the tee box, you have no shot.
Gotcha.
And then you have to battle these 280 foot tall pine trees that are in the middle of the fairway, where if you're out of position, you have nothing. It's pitching around. I mean, I saw Chandler Fry throw this. It's one of the sickest shots I've ever seen. And if you throw it too far or too short, you're out of position on that hole. And you have to be right, because it gives you this backhand alley. But if you get stuck left, you're just pinned behind these two enormous trees that there aren't many people who can throw over them, much less execute a shot at that height and that angle. And Chandler threw a roller over the top of these trees from 600 feet away.
Wow.
And just pinned it. And like we stood there watching, I was like, if you had asked me before, I'd say that's not physically possible. You can't throw the disc that high,
Right.
and then have the spin and control
Yeah.
to get a roller to come out and Like,
And they were supposed to. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, he literally made it travel 400 feet
Yeah.
before it ever hit the ground, and it still had only advanced like 150 feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
But yeah, it's just it's one of those courses that and you're so mesmerized by the beauty, these giant freaking trees that are big as cars, and just epic drop offs and scenes from the tee boxes, and so it is stressful and fun, but at the same time you still have to be on your game to play well there, and you don't get to take shots off, and so I love that. I love the harder courses. My favorite courses we play on tour are all the harder ones. Like I love Maple Hill, and I love Green Mountain and Milo and Rolling Ridge in Wisconsin.
Technically sound courses.
Where it's even par is almost always 1,000 rated.
Sure. Well, it's good to know that you think Cedar Hill is right there with up there with that type of courses.
Yeah, you guys. Cedar Hill's a great course, great layout, and I know you guys have so many variations of what you can do with that place.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it fits in, and I haven't seen the Mill Ridge course, but
you just wait, buddy. You
from
just
what
wait.
Is it more like Ravenwood where you have a lot of open?
It's a totally different animal. It's not as
Yeah.
ridiculous long as Ravenwood is,
Yeah.
and the difficulty of it is not pinned on the length. It is
Position.
long and technical because it's a big like Christmas stocking shaped piece of land. But all throughout it, it's gently rolling hills, and in between them are these drainage areas. And everywhere there's one of these drainage areas, these low areas, there's a line of trees sticking out at a weird angle. So Sean was able to run the course through it in a way where on every hole you've got multiple of these weird lines of trees sticking out into everything. So you're constantly having to wind your way around them, plus contending with the elevation. There's a little water out there. So it's definitely I would say it's a much more well-rounded course than Ravenwood ever was.
I think
there's nothing out there that's a gimme. There's nothing out there that's a tweener hole or a filler hole. It's all, even if it's one of the two things. It's either visually iconic or very demanding or some combination.
It kind of
both.
gives me the feel of a U of H.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of water, just
it's
Well,
going to
and
be
it
challenging.
Sounds like it's a
technically
really good
challenging.
compliment to Cedar Hill, and that
Yes, it's
Very
going
much
to
so.
test
let's be honest,
everybody
that's
on
what
a
makes
wide
Green Mountain
range.
so amazing is that you have two courses that are polar opposites. One is long rolling hills and selective landing areas, and the other is 10,000 feet in the woods
Well, this is
with rough terrain and tight fairways. And
I like to think of it as like distance can pay off at Mill Ridge, but if it's not accurate distance, you're going to be completely
I mean,
out
that's
of it.
Beaver State. It doesn't matter how far you throw, because if you don't land it in
Exactly.
a 30-foot circle, you have no shot.
Sure.
So
I think you'll be very impressed. The way I looked at it was like, this might be Sean's topping the cake right here, because this is, I mean, it's so demanding from start to finish, but and fair and technical, and it's rewarding. The way I looked at it, I was like, wow. I was kind of, I think to me personally, it'd be the best course in Nashville that we have.
what do you think they'll shoot out there? What do you think the best score will be?
What was part of the test event?
We have data somewhere from the test event. It's
Yeah.
probably in the Google Drive somewhere. Dr. Details may be able to find it on the drop of a hat.
I want to say it definitely tested some people.
7
But it was also, we were playing the FPO layout, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
largely amateur field.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, those are two
Yeah.
things to note when you look at the scoring data. But it was very promising because those high-level amateur players were playing the FPO layout, which is definitely, for an MPO player, it may be slightly less challenging, but it's just as technical, maybe a slightly not as long. But, the whole course,
Do you know what the length was of the course?
it's right around
8
10.
or 9? Oh, was
It's
it
close
longer
to
than that?
10.
For the FPL layout, it's that long.
No, for FPO,
Yeah, it was less.
FPO is like 8, 9,
Yeah.
somewhere in there. Yeah.
It was nowhere near 13, but it was. It was around 10. Yeah, I think you're right. It was like
No
9, 8 or
1,500
something.
foot uphill holes.
No, none of those.
It was very, the way the data separated, though, it was very much complimentary of what we anticipated from the track going into with our understanding of what Sean had done with it and what our goals were with the property. Because, I'm sure largely as with any property, but with this one in particular, it was, I would say, there are those out there who could, would, and maybe or did
yeah.
look at this property and not see anything.
Yeah.
Where, you know me, I'm ever the optimist when it comes to that kind of stuff because I'm used to being given whatever piece of land I can get and being expected to make a miracle happen. So I'm like, yeah, well, you can do it. And I don't care what he says. But it was definitely one of those things where what I ultimately in my mind at the outset of the whole thing was hoping for was that we were going to end up with just what you said, a national tour event that had a tough wooded track and a tough open track. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't expecting, Mill Ridge to become this iconic standout course in its first year as an Elite Series event or as a part of an Elite Series event. But between seeing what Sean did with it throughout the design process and seeing the way people reacted to playing it at the test event that we ran, like I just said, I was very impressed. I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I think it's going to play really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the fairness of it, because of the technical part of it, will lend its hand to people like you or myself or Will, or anybody in this room really, who play golf for golf, where it's not just throw far or not just get through a gap. Mm-hmm. It's get through here, throw far maybe in a hole or two, and land here. But if you don't, you'll have no angle or no attack opportunity. Right. So I think it's very, very risk reward, but in a very fair way.
Because I remember one hole was like 340, but it has a pretty tight gap about 3/4 of the way through the flight. And so if you can throw a fairway driver that or a mid-range, like the slower speed you're talking about, you can throw, you can, at the end of the flight, if you need something like slowly flipping at the end or a forehand, you can get a huge driver through there, but it's a much more difficult shot. Right. So it's kind of, the tougher, the distance could pay off in those aspects of it, like you're saying, accurate distance. And
Well, the one I'm thinking of is you tee off. Well, he's talking about the angled out pieces of wood. You tee off kind of on a lower side, but your shot has to basically, you almost have to put it on a flexed over anhyzer to get it and have it come back. Yeah. Because if it keeps fading, you're going to end up being in the trees, or if you bail out early, because you kind of tee from one side of a row of trees, but you need to be on the fairway of the opposite side of those trees, even though those trees end kind of a quarter of the way up the fairway, basically. So it's just very knowing where to land and in order to attack the basket.
You got to play golf.
Having some blind shots. Yeah, it's a very, very, very good course.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
There'll be plenty of coverage.
Oh, and you will.
Yeah. So what's in store for you in the next year or so, old man? You thinking about settling down anytime in the near future?
Heard something about this.
Yeah,
packing up the old RV.
Got some things working.
You got an exclusive for the podcast. I saw you went ahead and let the cat out of the bag a little bit in a Facebook post. So
we are in the process of looking for a large piece of land in the Nashville area to put in a couple of championship level courses and perhaps a brewery.
Ooh.
Wow, I wasn't expecting the cat to come all the way out of the bag, but hey.
Well, hello.
That's a load off my shoulders. I don't have to keep that thing under my hat anymore.
What's the name?
The brewery.
Not sure yet.
We're
throwing some things around.
Throwing some things around, but in the back of my mind, I have kind of fallen in love with Valhalla as the name of the course.
Now, this could be dangerous territory because
I
feel like there is somebody that has a backyard course that's called Valhalla somewhere in Middle Tennessee.
He does.
Joe Willett, yep.
I don't think you can patent that.
Well, I mean, I don't want to.
I'm sure he'd be. Maybe we just invite him over and throw.
You get this one the movie Vikings.
When I was competing in golf as a junior, we played. I think it was the Nike Junior Nationals or something like that at Valhalla in Kentucky.
Yeah, Louisville, Kentucky.
And it was I just fell in love with the place and the mystique of it, and so it just always became this name. And then the more I dug into the research and learning what Valhalla was and how that kind of came to be, I was like,
the All Father's dining hall.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a pretty cool background. Yeah. So I just kind of fell in love with that.
Nice.
But I don't want to step on anybody's toes, so maybe we'll go back to the drawing board.
Well, I know Joe, and I'm sure he'd probably co-sign. We'll talk to him. Might not be a thing, but we just want to make sure credit goes where it's due and all that good jazz. If somebody did something first, I'm going to be like, hey, I'm reaching out to you because I appreciate that you did it first, and it's a really good idea. Can I do it bigger? Is that cool?
More of a holiday.
Can I get
But
you?
yeah, we're still. It's
20
it's,
bucks?
It's
20 bucks?
exciting.
$20 holler?
We're definitely putting our feet to the ground, and it's still in the very
Talk to me,
early
Joe.
stages. But yeah, we'll start sharing things as maybe some details come to fruition.
Nice.
Breaking news.
Well, that's some cool stuff.
Well,
right
what's
there.
what would be what's the brewery side of it? Making a beer. Do you have like a name for a beer? Because I know they got some
Honeysuckle
pretty cheeky
Toast
names
IPA.
these days with like
Yeah, and you gotta
Craft
be so
beer.
creative
Like,
now, like
it's-
because
You
so
really
many
got to
getting
things
like
crazy.
in.
You're
The
kind of
bearded-
guy to get
the
real
bearded midget
edgy.
IPA.
Yep.
Like if the course is named Valhalla, then we call our first beer like Thor's
Goat.
Hammer?
Easy.
scrotum. something really
Thor's goat.
something really edgy.
Something really
that, like-
marketable, like
yeah.
Thor's scrotum.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
sounds like something I want to
I
drink.
could think of a crowd that would be into it.
Lazy Hammer.
I can think of a few.
Lazy Hammer IPA.
Everybody's into something.
Lazy Hammer IPA.
Lazy Hammer.
I'm pretty sure that one exists.
Is it?
I feel like I've definitely seen a lazy hammer.
That's pretty
All
good.
right, Lazy Hammer.
Props
get
to
at me.
those guys, whoever made that beer.
Yeah.
That's a good name.
Lazy Axe.
Lazy Axe. You lazy axe.
But yeah, it's cool. I mean, this is something that I've been kind of working on for several years now, and it started. I had started looking at originally Portland, and then Charlotte and Nashville were the three places that I kind of looked at, and there were certain people that I definitely really wanted involved in this, and so and I just Nashville has such an opportunity to support something like this, and I know that pay to play golf is a touchy subject for everybody, but I've been around enough to see how well it works if you're doing it the right way, and when people can see you putting your money back into the course and continuing to put effort into your passion, they become passionate about it and they want to support it, and so. And if you put the quality out there, people will pay for it. And so,
Yeah, we certainly got enough hipsters to support the brewery.
yeah, I mean it's it's just and it's a melding of worlds, and it doesn't stop there. We want to do cabins and RV spots and an outdoor concert venue and things like that make it a destination, so that it brings not just our local crew here, but can be something that people from all over the country plan their vacations around.
We had a couple people that came. We had a Little Harpeth Brewing putting league there, and we've had people that came out that like were with their buddies, just getting a beer at Little Harpeth Brewery. And then like, oh man, I've kind of played a little bit of disc golf, and now they play events all the time, and
Yeah.
they just didn't even know. Oh man, I thought it was just like hanging out and throwing discs. Like,
Yeah,
And it's just like craft beer has gone hand in hand with disc golf for. I mean, they've been our biggest supporters and for sponsorship for the most part. I mean, there's a place that for 2 years, 3 years, when I'd go through Asheville before my family moved there, it was just one of my friends, Jen. She's like, "Oh, my friend owns a brewery. You can park your RV there." And so, I mean, I'm coming in at 9, 10 o'clock at night. It's pitch black, and I'm just following this gravel road back to a brewery. And I wake up and I look out, and there's 18 baskets outside of this brewery. I'm like, "Oh, he's got a golf course too, And so he's become one of my really good buddies, and it's just he's always supported everything I ever did in that area, and the same goes for Charlotte and other the beer capitals of the world, Asheville, Charlotte.
I mean, you look at
Portland.
Kyle's model, another round disc
Yeah.
golf, big tap room in the store,
Yep.
and it's a hit. Mm-hmm. It's a big hit.
Yeah, for sure.
Man.
Yeah, they're doing big things over there.
But that's the thing is, it's more than just a disc golf complex. We want to have a place where, hey, you can come out here and have the freaking epic time of your life that you'll never forget. You're going to go home and tell all your friends about it. And if you have a little too much fun, you can stay.
Sounds great to me.
I was thinking about some of these sponsorships. I was thinking about breweries, and then also like that recent event I wanted to bring, like the Tito's Handmade Vodka donated $30,000 to B tier in Austin.
Were they was it that much? I know they.
Well, I don't think they donated maybe 30,000.
I know
They donated 10,000 to the
exclusively
FBO.
to the FBO,
exclusively. And so just thinking of
yeah,
like
for sure.
brewing companies
Oh, yeah.
and Tito's and other places, like
Yep.
It's good biz, man.
Well,
I mean, kind of goes along with where we started, kind of that counterculture, you know. I mean, it's.
Yep.
I mean, how far? I mean, like beer, like you were saying, beer was pretty corporate until as of recently, in that kind of that microbrew. But it was also very only certain people drink beer, or
Right.
you know, very kind of still kind of on that conservative level. So it was kind of still on that outside of things, and so I think. Of course, those fit right in there with our sport, with the counterculture that kind of started our sport, and so I think it's hand in hand there.
Yeah. Well, we let the cat out of the bag. We did the housekeeping at the beginning. We talked about
Bag tag,
bag tag. We talked about Battle for Ogwood.
all good at Ogwoods next weekend.
All good at
Yeah.
Ogwood is next
Yes.
weekend. What's the registration looking like on that?
Actually,
one right now?
there is quite a few. I think
Spots
there's quite a
available.
few spots available.
Okay, you guys.
There's like
Get signed up.
4 or 5 pros and like 6 or 7 advanced. Like,
we had
really kind of
300 people at Ogwood this weekend, and I know there was at least 100 more that wanted to play and couldn't get in.
Yeah.
So for you guys, there's still room for the all good at
And it's
Ogwood.
probably going to be beautiful weather again.
Yeah,
And
they're
the
running
course
2
is
rounds.
looking phenomenal.
Yeah.
And if you have other things in mind and want to go play a course that will be used for Am Worlds next year, I believe, in Evansville, Indiana.
Okay.
Stephen Waits is running an event that I'm helping with
Golf
next
snaps to
weekend.
Steven.
Yeah.
He's been on the
Nice.
show. Him and
Yeah.
Chris Baker were on the show.
Yeah, so he's running it's something at Princeton Country Club.
Okay.
But it's the ball golf course that they're using, and they have a permanent course out there now, and so it's kind of the
Nice.
Very nice.
first opportunity I think for them to go get rated rounds out there.
Sneak
and
peek?
So
Would
I
you,
know they're still like
I've had a couple
It's
AMs
probably like
come
a
back
third.
that have been planning on going up there for the tournament, and they've gone up there to check the course out and come back and giving it rave reviews.
What's the driving distance from about this area?
4.
I
and a
don't
half?
know. I don't think it's that far.
I mean, it's like 3 to 3.5
That's
to
where the-
Louisville to the state line.
That's where the casinos are, right?
Well, no, because last year I left from Ogwood and went straight there, and I want to say it was only like 2.5, 3 hours to get to
It's
Evansville.
probably around
So
3
about-
hours.
about
3
three
and a half
and a
hours.
half.
Yeah.
No, two. That,
It's
for
in
a
the
disc
southern
golfer,
part of the state.
Yep.
Yeah.
For a disc golfer, 3.5 hours. Is nothing.
Gravy capital of the world, baby. Indiana.
Gravy
Is it?
train.
Is it really gravy?
It sure seems that way.
No.
They have great. You could
I
get
think
gravy
I
on
think
your.
he's
You can get.
making things up.
You can get
How's
a
it
meal
been?
of gravy with a side of gravy in Indiana. Anywhere you go.
Wow.
Not even lying.
I love gravy. So
Like
I'm gonna go
biscuits
with
and
that.
gravy?
They put gravy on everything in Indiana.
Oh, good to know. Good to
I
know.
like gravy.
Lobster gravy, shrimp gravy.
I feel like I've
scallop
gotten to know
gravy.
JRay's left eyeball most of this episode. I feel like I've gotten to know JRay's left eyeball this entire
I'm like,
episode because he's been looking at me through the
R.I.P.
through
left
the
eye.
split in the, through the split in the arm. So every time he's been talking, he's
soon.
been like,
Don't
just give me the,
go
the
She
one
got
eye.
tired of messing with the microphone, so I
I
was
feel
like,
ya.
Please stick to the ribs.
Well, he's like, that's a quick change.
Yeah, you got this one? Let me tell you, you got it? All right. Ending the show on a Monday. Bag tags. It's over. I didn't win. I'm not sorry. I'm just mad.
Thank you, JRay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Dr. Details.
One stroke.
Thank you, Jay. And thank you, audience, for tuning in to episode 33.
Peace out.
Love you, brothers.
That's a wrap. Love you, John.
love you. Much love.
Mwah, I can't wait
Yeah,
to have you living here. So
I would go on a limb and say you were the only par that went into the hazard on hole 3, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I took a 5.
Because
We can check this. Let's check the
We
scores.
can look at. I bet that's true though.
Update.
Is
I
there
bet
anything
it
else
is,
you want to
yeah.
put on the airwaves? Anything you want to direct people towards online that they can follow you
I'd
at?
love to say I have to promote things right now, but I don't.
They just fill up in
You're
minutes.
promoting yourself, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Oh,
we did
no.
enough promoting
But
of
yeah,
JRay.
I appreciate you guys. It's always a blast being here.
Good times. Good times.
Love having you in town.
Yep.
Gonna love having you in town more than twice a year.
Yes.
Awesome.
It's gonna be dope.
I'm gonna love being somewhere more than.
Yeah, it might be nice.
You're gonna love having an address to give to a girl you like.
Nice.
It's not a Walmart address.
Right? That's not a Walmart
Catch me
parking
at the
lot.
Walmart. house.
Are you the homeless guy with the shopping cart full of ramen?
Homeless? What are you talking about? Homeless?
No, I have a home. It just has wheels.
And a trailer.
Hey, there's a lot of homes with
I just
wheels
read
around
it.
here.
It's true.
I know thing.
It's true. All right. Peace out, crowd, squad, and we'll catch you next week.
Love you.
See you.
Let the bass kick.